You are literally taking the habits to make the best dish and you're using them for your dish. And success is just like that. If you have a goal that somebody has already accomplished, there's a good opportunity for you to find the clues in their footsteps.
So whether it's this YouTuber I'm talking about or whether it's your life, you have to reverse engineer your finish lines and ask yourself, I want to be in shape. I want to be wealthy. I want to have magnificent relationships. But am I reverse engineering those finish lines, or am I just kind of hoping that it happens?
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, NLU weekly live podcast for week number 84. We're talking about designing the best habits to accomplish your dreams. On our little intro there, you saw one of my favorite quotes, but one of my other favorite quotes is the biggest difference between the person you are and the person you want to be is your habits. And today we're going to talk all about that. Alan and I have realized that the power of coaching is so important because it helps you design habits. If Alan and I are succeeding in something, it's probably because we have the habits necessary to succeed. And when you work with us or any coach in general, they're able to share those habits with you and say, hey, you should really be doing more of this. You should really be doing less of that. So our goal today is to raise your awareness and help you take action to figure out the habits to get to your goals.
All right. So the very first point that I have up here, Kevin and I just finished prepping for this, has to do with the concept of reverse engineering. And basically the idea here is, and this is a really, really silly example. Imagine you want to build the best phone in the world. If you're watching this, here's in my opinion, the best phone in the world, the latest iPhone. And then you just go out into a field and randomly start playing Frisbee with your friends. See, those two things have nothing to do with each other. That is the opposite of reverse engineering a finish line. Playing Frisbee in a field with your friend will never build this. Okay, that's an extreme example, but that's what a lot of people do. They say, I want to be in shape. I want to be wealthy. I want to have a magnificent relationship. But then they go out and they do things that are in actually direct opposition of the results that they want. And so reverse engineering is the opposite. I remember Kevin and I were in Florida and we met one of our heroes, and I'll keep it anonymous, but basically he's this very, very successful YouTuber. And I remember we were basically trying to figure out how he became so successful. And we crunched his numbers. We pulled up his analytics and we did a whole bunch of spreadsheet work in Google Sheets. And we found out the videos that hit. This person's a motivational speaker. And the videos that hit, basically what we found out is that the first few months he put out several videos and some of them eventually just started to really go viral. They started to really hit. I think the first time he had 70,000 views on one video. And then what we had to do is reverse engineer. Okay, those videos hit. Let's do more of those. Why did they hit? Why were they so successful? Right? I remember early in our podcast journey, Kevin and I were trying to figure out how to title our episodes more effectively. And I remember even recently we had our last week, we had the 5 M's of Next Level Motivation. We had someone on our team basically say, honestly, a lot of people who don't already listen to you guys don't know what that means. And so a good example of reverse engineering how to get more listens is to have compelling titles. And that's just one facet. So whether it's this YouTuber I'm talking about or whether it's your life, you have to reverse engineer your finish lines and ask yourself, I want to be in shape. I want to be wealthy. I want to have magnificent relationships. But am I reverse engineering those finish lines, or am I just kind of hoping that it happens?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was my Wi-Fi is no longer jeffing. It was jeffing that whole time. So we'll see what happens.
Good now.
So Alan kind of alluded to this early in our journey when we said, okay, you know what? We really want to do this podcast thing. We want to grow this. We want to make this into a business. We started to seek out support. We started to seek out mentors, right? So you have to understand, if you want to design the best habits to accomplish your dreams, follow the lead of somebody who's already done it. There are probably a lot of books on how people became successful. There's a ton of YouTube channels. There's a ton of podcasts. There's a ton of videos. There's a ton of courses. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of content out there. Now, what you may find is you may figure out very quickly that like, oh, maybe this person didn't reverse engineer it, like Alan was just talking about. Maybe this isn't super, super relevant to what I want to do. I know when Alan and I started to seek out mentors, we found out very quickly that there wasn't a lot of strategy that these people were using. I know we said, like, what are the ways that you grew your show? Like, what are the most important 5 things? And these people didn't really have great answers. And Alan and I have asked a lot of people that, like, what are the most important things? What are the most important 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, 5 things? What do you wish you knew early on? Because we were trying to take their habits and then make them unique to us. Start searching for people who have the success that you want, because success leaves clues. Again, it might not be the exact things you should be doing, but it'll give you an idea of what to do. So Alan and I, for instance, recently, we, for the longest time, have been saying, hey, we need to get on more shows. Hey, we need to get on more shows. I think that's an important habit for us. Alan and I have been getting on a lot more shows. We've been getting a lot more listens. And now I'm able to pass that on to my clients. Every single time I talk to a client, a new one or a recurring one, I say, hey, how are you in terms of getting on other shows? I want you to follow in our footsteps, because I can tell you exactly what's working for us. Again, not trying to sell you on coaching. It's just another benefit of coaching or books or audiobooks or YouTube channels. Follow in the footsteps of the people who are successful, because more often than not, they have already developed and tested the habits. And if you think about it like a recipe, I don't know if you were going to use this, Alan, I don't want to steal your thing.
No, it's okay. Do it.
If you think about it like a recipe, somebody said, okay, I don't know, this pasta, we'll throw it in here for 4 minutes. Not right. We'll throw it in here for 15 minutes. Not right. Maybe 11 minutes. Okay, let's try that. And they figured out that recipe, that time, works nicely. Okay, now we got to make the sauce. There's too much salt. There's too much basil. So when you use a recipe, you are literally taking the habits to make the best dish, and you're using them for your dish. And success is just like that. If you have a goal that somebody has already accomplished, there's a good opportunity for you to find the clues in their footsteps.
So the next thing I have here, we talk about this often. And again, this is about habits. We talk about a peak performance tracker. And everyone on the NLU team uses this peak performance tracker. And it comes from a very simple idea. And the simple idea is that if you want your decade to be magnificent, you have to have magnificent years, magnificent months, magnificent weeks, and magnificent days. So you can literally take a decade of all the goals you want to achieve and then break it down into daily habits. The secret to your long-term success lives in your daily routine. And so a peak performance tracker is this simple thing that we have where it's like, okay, it's called a daily dozen. And the story I want to tell you guys, actually, I have a notebook back here. These little notebooks I used to carry around years and years and years ago. And I didn't know it at the time, but I remember I used to track all my habits. And I have literally, this notebook is probably from 6 years ago, before Kevin and I even worked together. And it has health, wealth, and love. And I have actually 6 things under love. I have 5 things under wealth, and I have 5 things under health. So under health, I have weight training as number 1. I have macros/supplements as number 2. I have stretch and foam roll as number 3. I have power nap/meditation as number 4. Power napping was
I miss it. The good old days.
And then number 5 is micronutrients. And I used to literally check these off as I went. This is long before I ever knew that the entire NLU team or my clients would ever do this. And now we have what's called peak performance tracking, and it's the same type of thing. And it's basically a daily dozen things that you do a day, 4 habits under health, 4 habits under wealth, and 4 habits under love. And so I'll give you an example of one of my clients. So one of my clients is in the financial services industry, and his main focus is basically getting more people onto his team that can be successful in financial services. And we have him, one of his peak performance tracking habits is 10 calls per day. 10 calls to potential team members per day. Okay, that's one habit that if he does it, then he will be more likely to succeed. If he doesn't, then he won't. Kevin and I just got finished recording an episode about manifestation. And one of the reasons why we don't like that word, or at least we don't like how most people think of that word, is it's more of hoping and wishing rather than reverse engineering. And so, hoping that you're going to be wealthy is very different than designing 4 specific habits that you do every single day, no matter what, that are going to help you become wealthy. See, those are 2 very different lives. And the key here, again, is designing. Success is by design. So if you're out there right now and you have these goals and dreams, and if you're listening, you obviously have goals and dreams, because why else would you listen to us? Let's be honest. Okay. You want to get to the next level. You're not going to get to the next level by default. You're going to get to the next level by design. And that means designing what you're doing, and more importantly, what you're not doing. If you want to lose weight and you're sitting on the couch eating Cheetos all day, every day, you will not lose weight. We all get it, right? But if you want a positive life, you have to have positive habits, and there's absolutely no way around that. Trying to break that is just a losing game.
And you got to find the correlation too, right? So like for this client of Alan's, 10 calls a day gave him a certain level of results. Alan and I, or I don't know if it was just me, but I was talking to somebody and I said, what's really been working well for me in terms of getting clients is free calls. My goal on a free call is to add as much value as humanly possible. And usually people say, what does it take to work with you? And I'm like, awesome, that's great. And I asked this person, I said, how many free calls are you doing? And this person said, I'm not doing a lot. Like, it's really hard to get. And I said, well, what do you think would happen if you made it a habit to get more free calls, to give more free calls? And then we came up with like, well, I think I'd have a lot more business. Okay, what do you think you can do? What are your habits to actually make this habit a little bit easier? And you just kind of, when you get clear on what it is, the important thing, then you have to find a way to get it done. And that's what Alan was just speaking to there. So Taryn and I were sharing this office, and Taryn came to me the other day and said, hey, I'm going to move we have like a master closet, which is like giant. So it's big enough for a desk and all this stuff. She said, I'm going to go into the cloffice, as we call it, and you're going to have the office to yourself. And I was like, awesome. Number one, I'm super grateful. There's a ton of room. I have like a bunch of clothes. I have the guitar. I have all my stuff here, which is awesome. But it came at a really, really opportune time for me, because when I wake up in the morning, I don't want to be rummaging through the closet and through the drawers because Taryn's trying to sleep. And when I go to the gym in the morning, oftentimes I forget things. I forget to put out my knee sleeves. I forget to put out my tank top. I forget to put out socks or whatever it may be. Now, that complicates that habit for me. So by moving into this room and having all of my clothes, I found and solved the problem of friction. A lot of us know what we should be doing for our habits, but there's friction. So if your gym clothes aren't out in the morning, it's going to be harder for you to accomplish that dream. If your scale isn't set up in your bathroom, like another thing, we have kittens and they love to play with the scale for some reason. We gave them little straws. It's like the best toy in the world. And Ace, the tiger looking kitty, throws the straw under the scale in the bathroom and just like knocks it over. And he's like pushing the scale all around the bathroom. So sometimes at night I take it out and I put it in my office. If that scale is not in the bathroom in the morning, the odds of me weighing myself go down dramatically. Now, luckily I'm doing it and I'm disciplined and I've built it into a habit, but you have to figure out where is the friction and how do I eliminate it? If you are waking up too late in the morning, and think about this, if your dream is to be financially free, in shape, and in love, and you're waking up in the morning later than you want, you're rushing around the house, you're not getting dressed the way you want to, you're not prepping your meals, you're not doing the things that you should, you're going to stop for fast food and you're going to spend money, and maybe that's going to hurt your health goals. So one habit can affect a bunch of habits. And I think that's an important thing to understand. Find the friction and figure out how to alleviate that friction. And honestly, your goals, your dreams get a lot easier that way, because you're not only fighting yourself, you're fighting other circumstances if you don't find that friction.
So another thing that I wanted to talk to everyone about today is basically, so for those of you who know me well, you know that I want to have the most magnificent, intimate relationship humanly possible. And I started doing this habit. So there's a book called The 5 Love Languages that most people have heard of, but they also have an app that I used for a long time, and I don't use it anymore, but it's called Love Nudge. And I believe it's by Gary Chapman is the book, right? Yep. And Emilia and I have since come up with, I believe, 23 conscious love languages, not just 5. But I remember I used this app for the longest time. And this app basically made it simple for me to track my habits to make sure that I was consistently and sustainably filling Emilia's cup. Emilia and I are coming up on 2 years. We've been together for 2 years. And this is about redesign. So not only do you have to reverse engineer your finish lines and then track your habits, but you also have to redesign as you evolve. Emilia has evolved a lot since I first met her 2 years ago. And so what I used to think was a top leverage point of things that were important to her now maybe aren't. And now we live together, so we've also had to redesign that. So I've since actually taken Love Nudge. The app is actually really slow. So sorry, Gary Chapman, if you're out there listening. But the app kind of sucks, if I'm honest. And so I eventually put it into my own sort of tracker on Google Sheets, and I have been redesigning it. I have, honestly, I want to say like 30 columns of things. One of them is like, a gift for Tucker. One of them is a digital magic moment of a sunset or whatever. One of them is a memory. One of them is, foot massage, things like that. And I actually redesigned it just the other day. And basically what I did is I went through the columns and I was like, okay, which one of these do I now understand is not essential? And which ones of these are absolutely critical? Deep conversations is one of the most important ones on there. Emilia, it fills her cup so much to have deep, meaningful conversations. And so that one needs to stay. But there was some other ones on there that honestly aren't that important. I don't really need to track them because now I understand that they don't mean that much to her. Okay. So the point is not only do you have to reverse engineer every finish line in your life. Okay. So here's the thing. Goal. I want to have the most magnificent, intimate relationship humanly possible. Awesome. That's the goal. Reverse engineer it. What are the things that fill my partner's cup the most? Okay. Track it. Track it over time. When your partner evolves, which by the way, they're going to, especially if you're pouring in all the time, are you redesigning the system to evolve with it? See, if I don't redesign my system, then Emilia doesn't have the room to evolve and our relationship won't evolve as well. What was important to me back then might not be as important now as I'm moving into the 33rd year of my life. And so the point is that you also have to redesign. Not only do you have to design your goals, design the habits to achieve them, but then you have to redesign those habits as you evolve and as you grow and as you raise your awareness. What Kevin and I at one point thought was important in podcasting, we realize now is not that important. We used to think Instagram followers were so important. It's not nearly as important. We know some podcasters who have hundreds of thousands of listens and almost no Instagram followers. We know some podcasters who have 200,000 Instagram followers and almost no listens. Okay, so they're not actually as correlated as we once thought, but we didn't know that at first. So we had to eventually redesign. Design, execute, redesign. Design, execute, redesign over and over and over again.
I think a good way to do that too, Alan, I'm curious on your thoughts, but I know that I work really well with 90-day goals. And you and I have talked about that. I have my whiteboard up over there. And I think sometimes it can be, I don't want to say overwhelming to track everything, like thinking you're going to be doing it forever. And sometimes it's hard to redesign if you don't have like a finish line. So for me specifically, I have 90-day goals written down, and it gives me like, okay, after 90 days, if I don't get this result, I'm going to do some sort of redesign. Mm-hmm. And I know you redesign your system like fairly often, but just for an example out there, I was in the sauna today with somebody. I told Taryn I call it like sauna talks. I literally like interview the people in the sauna. So the kid in there today is a buddy of mine now, and we were talking about goals. And I said, well, maybe for you, this is something you could try. I do this and it works for me. I've set 90-day goals in health, in wealth, and in love, because for me, having a very visible target has been super, super beneficial for me. And I tend to forget things if I say like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this between now and the rest of the year, right? It just seems like it's too far out. So just as an example, 5 new clients, 12 fun, unique experiences with Taryn. Fun, unique experience like date night, going apple picking, whatever it may be, going for a walk, hanging out with friends, and then down 12 pounds. That one we'll see. That's the hardest one right now. But setting those micro goals, then you can refocus, and you can refocus along the way and redesign also. What's your take on, hey, as you would say, what's your take on all that?
What's your take on all that? I think it's important. I really do. I think a lot of people, if you're a long-term strategic thinker naturally, what I would say is this, and I think it's important for us to rumble with this. There was a speech where I heard about this, and basically in chess, life is a lot like chess. You can't win a chess game without making effective decisions. And life is a lot like that. Everything you say, think, do, feel, and believe is a choice. And if you say unintelligent things and do unintelligent things and think unintelligent things and behave in unintelligent ways and believe unintelligent things, you're going to have a pretty terrible time succeeding. If you want to be wealthy, you have to make intelligent wealth choices. If you want to be healthy, you have to make intelligent health choices. And if you want to be in love, you have to make intelligent love choices. And to answer your original question, Kev, in chess, there's different levels. In everything, there's different levels. This is Next Level University. But in chess in particular, grandmasters can think 15 moves ahead, 13 to 15 moves ahead. Masters can think 10 to 12 moves ahead. And then there's experts that can think, I think, 7 to 10. And then there's novices that can think, I think, 4 to 7. And then beginners can think like 1 to 3 moves ahead. And if you've ever played chess, you know what I'm talking about. I tried to teach a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old how to play chess. And very quickly, I realized that was very humbling because it's like, how do I explain how to think 15 moves ahead to a 7-year-old? Right. And the point is that you kind of can't. You have to start as a beginner and think, 1 or 2 moves ahead, because the kids wanted to play checkers, not chess. They're like, this game's too hard. Like, let's not play it. Right.
Hey everyone, I'm Helen Baker from Melbourne, Australia. I'm an entrepreneur and a client of Alan's from Next Level University. I've had many business coaches in the past, and I can honestly say that Alan is seriously next level, and excuse the pun, but he has this unique ability to help you find a solution to your business problems using his intellect and his business modeling and his genuine, heartfelt desire to help you achieve your goals. I can be vulnerable with Alan, I can share anything and feel comfortable in his presence, knowing that at the end of our coaching sessions, I feel empowered to do incredible things. So if you're looking for a business coach, I highly recommend Alan, because his advice and his ability to coach you will be instrumental in achieving your success.
Then eventually it's like, okay, now you can start thinking 4 or 5 moves ahead. Then it's like 6 to 7. Then eventually it's 7 to 10. And so what Kevin is basically demonstrating there is humility. 90-day goals are easier for him because he doesn't naturally think 15 moves ahead. Mm-mm. Maybe he can't, think, reverse engineer today based on 15 years from now.
I'm a checkers guy. I like the horse because he does the L thing. But other than that, I'm a checkers guy.
Sounds good, man. And the truth of the matter is that some grandmasters can literally beat masters with 15 masters in a row, while the grandmaster goes from board to board in speed chess. And it's the amount that the brain can compute. And I remember, Kev, I don't remember what study it was, but you said they hooked people up to fMRI and had them imagine their future. And some people were imagining a stranger versus some people were imagining themselves. And so you got to kind of have the humility to understand, okay, maybe 90-day goals are better for me. That's how we design group coaching. It's like, you're going to achieve more in 90 days than you ever have before. I personally think decades ahead. Emilia thinks much longer term than I do. She thinks, she reverse engineers longer finish lines that I've never seen anyone do that before. But she's a deeper thinker than I am. And that's been hard to admit, to be honest with you. And I honestly think that I'm more of a long-term thinker naturally than Kevin is. And I think Kevin's a longer-term thinker than most people. And the point is you can develop this skill over time, but you have to start where you are. And be honest with yourself. If you can't think 15 moves ahead and you're not that good at chess, just admit it and go play against beginners, and then start beating beginners, and then play against novices, and then start beating novices, and then play experts, and eventually masters, and then grandmasters. So start with short-term goals and succeed there, and then you can start thinking longer term.
Yeah, I think of it like if you came to me and said, I want to make, it's the beginning of the year, I want to make $100,000 this year. It's like, all right, cool. What if you just focus on making $10,000 this month? Like, right. Wouldn't that be a good way? And again, that's the way I work. Alan is much, much further out in his thinking, but it's like, okay, I'm down 2 pounds. And if I continue that for the next 10 weeks, I'll hit my weight goal. I already have 3 to 5 potential new clients. Like, I'm already at that goal. So that just helps me. So I figured I would share that. Okay. Number 3 for me, As you know, Alan and I have a bunch of clients, which is amazing. And there's this common theme that I see with podcasting clients where when you're a podcaster, you get to meet a lot of awesome people. And when you get to meet a lot of awesome people, you get a different level of opportunity, right? So Alan and I have had a lot of opportunity to run affiliate ads and do all sorts of different stuff. We've always said no. Why? Because we realize that the through line for Alan and I is podcasting. As long as NLU keeps rolling, as long as we keep getting better and we keep getting more listens and we keep doing the right things, then everything else will continue to grow. And every other habit that we do is going to tie into podcasting. One of my clients said, somebody is literally trying to pay me to create their Instagram posts. And I said, do you want to be the best graphic designer in the world, or do you want to be the best podcaster? And she said, I want to be the best podcaster. I said, I would leave all that other stuff to the side. I know it's money, but you shouldn't be building those habits. You should be building the habits of making money in your podcast, or find somebody to do those and get a percentage of it. Like, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but find your through line. If you're a speaker, master all of the habits of speaking, all of them. There's a bunch of different parts of it, right? Communication, tone, pronouncing words correctly, like I just didn't in the past 3 minutes. There's a ton. Podcasting, there's a ton. The technical side, interviewing, being interviewed, all of that stuff. So as long as you understand, like, okay, this is where I want to go, what is the through line for my success? You will find that the people who are the most successful found a train. And this is like Alan's favorite thing. They found a train and they kept the momentum of that train, and they kept accelerating the momentum of that train. And if you stay in your lane and you do one thing, it's a lot easier to stack those habits, where if you're doing 15 different things, you have to learn 15 different sets of habits, and it's just not as easy.
I remember I was a part of 60,000 people in Foxborough Stadium at a Taylor Swift concert. And I remember she said this was her 14th year singing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, 14 years straight singing country music. And she talks about how she didn't know that it was going to be this big of a deal, but she just kept at it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if she even took 1 or 2 years off of singing, there's no possibility I'd be in Foxborough Stadium with 60,000 people listening to Taylor Swift. And there was someone there that opened for her, and I don't even know her name, and she was excellent. But I remember thinking to myself, like, maybe she didn't sing as long or as well. She did something different. Maybe she stopped and didn't have as much momentum as T Swift. I don't know the answer, but I do know that consistency is always there whenever someone is world class at anything. And you guys hear us talk about consistency all the time. And one of my favorite quotes in any book is, with consistency, almost everything is possible. But I like to invert things. Without consistency, almost nothing is possible. If you can't be consistent at podcasting, you will not succeed. If you can be consistent in podcasting and you can consistently improve, there's no reason why you won't eventually succeed. And again, succeed at what level? It varies. But I think the point we're trying to make is that not only do you have to design your habits and redesign your habits, but you have to do them consistently. Kevin mentioned the through line. I have something on here. It's a bonus. And Kevin and I each have 3 points, and we each have a bonus. And I'm going to actually ask Kevin some questions after this too. But we have something called your next level genius target. And I just went through this process with one of my clients. Kevin and I have both been through this process. And Christina made an amazing digital asset. If you want it, please reach out. But my last bonus point here is knowing your genius target. So my genius target is right in my corner, the corner of my room. It's on a whiteboard. It says Alan's Genius Zone. And it's basically got a target with 3 layers, 1, 2, and 3. And it's got every arrow pointing in. And the very center of the target, the bullseye, is coaching/consulting. One of my clients just made more money in one day than he's made in a year, than he's ever made. More money in 6 days than he's ever made, maybe in his entire life, which is so cool. But the reason I'm saying that is because my client's success is, a lot of that is predicated on these incredible conversations that we're having. I know for a fact, I know at this point in my life, I'm 33, about to be 33 years old on Wednesday. I know that coaching and consulting is my thing. It's my Michael Jordan level talent. And that's why it's the center of my bullseye. Because like Taylor Swift for country singing, maybe that's coaching and consulting for me. And not maybe, I do know that it is. And so number 2, speaking/training. Number 3, podcasting. What is your genius target? Kevin's is the opposite. The very center of his target is podcasting, number 1. Number 2 is speaking, and number 3 is coaching and consulting. Okay, so his is the opposite of mine. Same 3 things, but in a different priority order. And so my question for you is, what is your next level genius zone? What is your target? Because if you're out chasing butterflies and chasing things that you're not amazing at, you're probably not going to have the level of impact that you could have. Just like if Taylor Swift stopped singing 2 years in because the backyard barbecues were no good. And I think it's really important to understand, what is your center of your target? What is your greatest potential? What is your Michael Jordan level talent? What is the skill that you've always been good at, even when you didn't realize you were so good at it? I didn't know this, but Emilia asked me recently to reflect on the last 32 years of my life and like, what am I going to do differently in my 33rd year? And my answer was, I'm not going to go outside of alignment anymore. And what I mean by that is go outside of alignment with that target. I am here to maximize my own potential and help others do the same. That's what I'm doing right now. Coaching and consulting is number 1. Speaking and training is number 2. And number 3 is podcasting. The very last thing I want to say about this point is this. It's very, very critical for you to know yourself. You are amazing at something. And you probably take it for granted because you've always been awesome at it, even when you weren't trying. What happens if you doubled and tripled down on that thing? What if that's exactly what the world needs? Because that's most likely what you can get paid the most for. And my client that's had an unreasonable amount of success, he's doing something that's very, very, very key in the world right now. And it's very, very rare. And the skills that he has are very uniquely suited to it. And so my question for you is, what are the skills that you have? And how can you double and triple down on those so that you can have the life you really want?
Alan, I'm curious to your take on this, or if this is something you experienced, but I was eating lunch or dinner the other night, and for some reason I was like, you know what? I want to go on YouTube and find somebody who's doing a bodybuilding prep, and I want to watch the video. I have no idea why. I was just like, I just feel like doing that right now. And then I'm reflecting, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm making losing weight and bodybuilding and fitness, I'm making that a part of my identity again, where for a long time, I let that go. I think about Alan and I in the beginning of our journey. When people ask me, and think about this, I meet a lot of people at the gym because I'm friendly. And when I'm in the sauna, people like to talk to me. I don't know why. It's cool. I enjoy it. But they always say, like, what do you do? And I always say first, before anything else, I'm a podcaster. Like I'm a podcaster. And they say, like, what's your podcast? And Next Level University. And then they say, how do you make money? And like, but I'm a podcaster first. I've been a podcaster first for the past 4 years. That from the second I left my job, I was a podcaster. That's a part of my identity, right? So when I start dieting because I want to lose weight, is it any coincidence that I start watching bodybuilding videos? That I have started listening to motivational compilations and not music as much? Greg Plitt. Is that I'm thinking of different exercises, that I'm going into the gym with a different mindset, that I'm doing cardio. Like, I'm old bodybuilding Kevin. I've made it a part of my identity. And when you make something a part of your identity, it's a lot easier to follow through on the habits. If you want to make it a habit to donate more, adopt the identity of somebody who's charitable, right? If you want to adopt the identity of somebody who wakes up early, that's something that you can do. And if that is that going to help you with your goals, cool. If not, maybe it's not for you. But we all have an identity, and our identity contributes to our results in a lot of ways. And when you change your identity, you change your habits, right? If you are the type of person who does this, then your habits will start to reflect that. And it was just an interesting realization for me, Alan, that I'm dieting and I'm really focused more on fitness than I have been in a long time. And here I am watching bodybuilding videos of Ronnie Coleman and all these old school bodybuilders crushing it in the gym. And it's become part of my identity. And this is the other thing too. Alan and I always try to share our experiences to help with our examples. I've been dieting for 2 weeks. and I'm down on the scale 2 pounds. In the grand scheme of things, that does not seem like a whole lot of progress. But when it comes to designing your habits and accomplishing your dreams, Alan spoke about consistency. You've got to play the long game. If I keep doing the right things for the next 10 weeks, I'll hit my goal weight. If I keep doing the right things for the next 50 years, I'll hit my impact and profitability and mastery goals. So it is a long, long, long game. But to Alan's point, make sure you're constantly redesigning as you go through, because things change, you change, circumstances change, everything changes.
As everyone knows, there's always a time where I have to go to the bathroom quickly. But first, I'm going to ask Kevin a question. Kev, what specifically is it that you're doing to reverse engineer your goal of losing weight? Because I think that's one of the things that most of our listeners want to do. And it honestly, it's simple, but it's not easy. It is simple, but it's not easy. Go ahead. And I'll be right back.
So if you know anything about fitness, there's this idea that's thrown around that there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. Now, again, you don't have to like get stuck on that, but I want you to think of it this way. The ideal healthy level of weight loss is 1 pound per week. So in theory, I have to find a way to be in a 3,500 calorie deficit. So at this point, I know myself pretty well. And if I eat 2,500 calories a day, I pretty much stay the same. So that's maintenance. If I eat that forever, I won't gain weight. I won't lose weight. So I thought to myself, okay, I want to lose a pound a week for 12 weeks. I want to lose 12 pounds. What do? I have to find a way to eliminate 500 calories a day. So I dropped my calories to 2,000 calories a day. So if I eat 2,000 calories for 7 days, I will be in a 3,500 calorie deficit, which equals 1 pound per week. Now, the fitness weight loss example is one of the best ones because it's very, very specific. I know that if I cut X amount of calories, I'll lose X amount of weight. Now, that's like the simplest thing. Am I eating different foods? Yes. I had a giant salad while I was recording with Alan before, but that's based on the fact that I know I'm going to be starving because I haven't eaten a lot. But that's how I reverse engineered it. I think it's one of those things of this number gives me this result. This number gives me this result. The number in the middle gives me this result. That's what I'm going to do. Now, full disclosure, back in the day, I didn't know exactly what that number is. So I have designed and constantly redesigned what works. And as I change and I gain more weight or I lose more weight or I have more muscle, everything changes a little bit. So weight loss is a constant redesigning, and it all starts with the awareness that you have of this effort gives me this result. Awareness and clarity is always numero uno.
Fire. Kev, what didn't you understand about reverse engineering or peak performance tracking, like early in your journey? And we're coming up on almost 5 years on the podcast. And now I feel like you reverse engineer basically everything now. What didn't you understand back then that you now realize?
I don't think I was conscious that my habits were getting me a certain result, because for most of my life, I convinced myself that I was just lucky. I was lucky that I batted 350 or whatever it was, hit a home run, stole a base, made a really good play. I felt lucky that I made 6 figures because I don't think I reverse engineered it consciously. So I didn't understand that I was capable of accomplishing whatever I wanted as long as I had the right inputs. That's like a foreign language to me. And we talked a little bit about that in one of the episodes we recorded today. I didn't realize that it was designable. I thought you kind of went with the flow and you did what you thought was right. And then you kind of got the result and figured out, okay, I want more of that result or less. I never sat down and said, this is what I want. This is how I get it. I did say, this is what I want. I just never knew how to get it. Genuinely. I didn't know what the strategy was. I didn't know what the habits were. I didn't.
So like when you, so for example, when you take a class in college, they give you a syllabus and it says like what the course will be and it says how to get an A. I would just figure out exactly what I had to do to get the A, and then I wouldn't do any more than that. I would just do that. And I remember I found out in Calc 4, so Calc 1, 2, 3, and 4, I found out you don't have to go to attend class. You don't have to get an A. It wasn't part of the grade. And so I just pulled all-nighters the night before and got straight A's on all the tests, and I got straight A's in all my calc classes. And I think that I've always been reverse engineering. Yeah. What I want to ask you is, you know me now, and this isn't about me. What is it that's different about that thinking versus what most people think?
I don't know that most people have the vision of a couple things. Number one, I think you're really good at connecting and seeing what other people have done. Like unconsciously knowing like, okay, this is a good example. You said to me the other day, like, hey, we shouldn't be spending any money on marketing because Tesla doesn't do it. And we're like Tesla. And you know what I did? The first thing I did, I was like, first of all, dumb idea. And then I Googled how much money does Tesla spend on marketing? It was zero. And I was like, okay, right again. I don't think that's conscious for most people. Like that's not a thought that most people have. Comparing themselves to Apple or Tesla or Google or Facebook, like that level of visionary thinking, I think is just super rare. Like the rarest, I say, like 1 in a billion. Genuinely, 1 in a billion. Where for me, I don't know how to get certain results. I do more than ever because like fitness, I've been practicing and I've seen correlation. This amount of free calls gets you this amount of clients. Do more free calls. This amount of guest podcasts gets you this amount of listens. I just didn't know that I could move the pieces, and now I do.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I appreciate that, man. Honestly, and I'm glad you looked it up. That's hilarious. I think that for anyone out there listening, what I want to say is this: manifestation is a skill, and it's a skill that you can develop over time. And some people have been developing that skill unconsciously, and then they're teaching it to people who don't actually have that skill unconsciously. And so if this is not a thing that you think is a strength, that's okay. Just reach out and ask for help by someone who, okay. And then we'll move to Q&A. Everyone has someone in their life who always finds a way to succeed somehow. They just always win. Think of someone who you think is just lucky. I promise you they're not lucky, because if they were lucky, it wouldn't happen over and over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? That person is a manifester. They have an unconscious competency of how to manifest results in advance. Go ask them questions and learn from them. And that's the one thing, it can be Kevin, it can be Kevin, podcasting, me, peak performance or success or, finance. I mean, Emilia and I were talking finances literally last night of how to reverse engineer exactly the results that she wants. It's not luck. And I want everyone out there to realize that there are people out here that are literally designing their future in advance, and they have their dream life. You can too. I'm certain that you can too. You just have to learn how to do what they've been doing, even if they're unconscious about it. So we'll move to Q&A, but this was super powerful. One of the most powerful that we've ever done, because like you say, if you don't change your habits, your future won't change. It's like, it's impossible to have a positive future without positive habits. It's literally impossible. So it's so important to reverse engineer that, and success happens by design, not by accident.
Well, it's last thing. It's like the lottery thing. Like if you win the lottery and you don't have the right habits, you're going to spend all that money, or you hire somebody to take care of it for you, but that's not yet a habit. So it just is one of those things. Even if when you do get lucky, luck is not sustainable or repeatable for most people. So